Good evening, everyone. And good evening, the viewers over there. Welcome to Satsang. Tonight you will have to excuse me because I have some cold. So if I'm behaving a little strange, incoherent, if I'm mumbling sometimes, it's not my fault. I have this prepared. But usually the magic of communicating truth can make even the body stronger. Because it shines in the radiance of truth, even if momentarily. So, it's important to understand before I'm even starting that there are no satsangs, which means there are not really many events that can be titled satsang. They are not different in essence. Every month I'm meeting you here and you here, and every month, whatever angle I'm discussing, whatever point we are exploring, essentially it's always the same. And that's very different from many types of teaching, training, education. They can be many. There is the feeling that there is so much to learn. Also the frustrating feeling sometimes that despite all the learning, we know nothing, which is, I think, the complementary half of every learning. At least every honest learning, right? Yeah. After 20, 30 years, we sit and we say, oh my God, after all these books, after all this training, after all these practices, after all these great teachings and great understandings, here I am and I really don't get anything right. And this is for a good reason. If you want to know the good reason, return to the previous satsang. I will not repeat it today. It's true that all satsangs are one satsang, but I am not going to be that repetitive. And then there is the non-learning. And the non-learning is is just as important, and perhaps sometimes from a certain perspective, more important, more essential, more critical. And this unlearning, this revelation of that is called satsang is essentially always the same. We always meet in the same space. Therefore, don't be deluded by my talk. It's just more of you are most invited. A double meaning, most invited. So, in this sense, don't be deluded by the words, by the specific angle. It's not so important what I say, but more the power of what I say, the impact of it on your consciousness or your mind as you listen. So please don't be alarmed. I'm not voicing an opinion. I'm not trying to convince you about something. It is really like that Zen saying goes, I'm just the pointing finger. So just like with my cold, it's not my fault. Okay? Okay. Now it's clear. But whatever we're going to talk about, we are going to first explore through direct meditation. So for that, let us please close our eyes. So we're just going to softly tune in. And take one deep breath. Then breathe slowly and deeply. And relax more and more with every breath we take. So it is possible that as we close our eyes, at the beginning there is more silence felt than thoughts. But after a moment or two, the mind, at least at the background, begins to become more active. And that is not a problem. There is no greater illusion than trying to become silent. And there is no worse method than trying to silence your thought. Instead, be aware of every movement that arises in your mind. Whether a thought, a feeling, a sensation. And just be aware of the gap between this thought, sensation, or feeling and the next thought, sensation, or feeling. Even if it's a brief gap, a minor gap. And as you are becoming aware of every thought, sensation, or feeling, don't busy yourself with what they say. Just feel it as a movement in your mind and be interested more in the gap, in the interval, in the space between one thought and another. Slowly realize how between every thought, sensation, or feeling there is quite a lot of gap. And actually, the more you are aware of the gap, the bigger the gap becomes. And the more aware you become of the gaps, the vaster the gap becomes. Until you realize that there is so much gap, much more than thoughts, emotions, and sensations. In this meditation, you are not afraid of having thoughts. You're actually waiting for them. As a chance to look for this gap. And you don't even try to widen the gap. You're just noticing that it so happens. Because of your awareness. So slowly you're realizing that you don't have to create silence. It's everywhere. It's at the background of your thoughts. So when you look into the gap, you're getting in touch with the background of your mind. It's just like you're putting your head in between one thought and another. Not trying to do anything, just relaxing your head in this gap. So slowly, as you perhaps already feel that there is such a vast space separating one thought from another. Just allow yourself to fall into this gap. Like a free fall. Entering it completely. Who are you in this gap? What are you? So slowly and gently you can come out of the meditation, but not necessarily from this space. You can slowly open your eyes. That's, I think, my favorite metaphor, at least today. That of the fact that when we look at the night sky, our conditioned mind, the mind that always looks for objects, always looks for some things, sees immediately the stars. We see the dots, many dots. Then we say, wow, look at the stars. But really, the sky, night sky, is probably 99, I'm being cautious because I'm not a scientist, 99% space. And it's only our conditioning that makes us always notice the things in space and to ignore the space. And these facts that sounds maybe, I don't know, trivial, is actually the reason that we suffer in life. The reason for our suffering, the reason for our confusion, the reason that we're so troubled is the fact that we only see the stars and we don't see the sky. Now, of course, you're confused now because you're thinking maybe it's the cold that he says. We're not suffering because we're confused between the night sky and the stars. But this is exactly what happens in our mind. Our mind is 99.999, here I'm not cautious, 99.99999 space. And then there is some mild 0.000001 that is made of thoughts and emotions. But we always notice those things, they always stand out. And because they receive so much disproportionate attention, they destabilize our natural being, which is being space and being mostly consciousness, awareness, rather than thinking. Of course, we always ask ourselves, how can I function if I'm 99.9999% space? But then we may be surprised that we actually function better. So this very simple meditation that we did at the beginning is sort of a metaphor, but also a good practice to realize how much space there is inside, how much unknown there is inside us. And this is what I'm going to talk about this evening with the night sky over my head. About the greatest mystery in the universe. That is you. Now, of course, we rarely take a look into that mystery. And maybe I will say it later. We are mostly covering it up and fearing it because it's uncomfortable to be a mystery. Do you understand? It's uncomfortable because every day you need to pretend that you know yourself very well, and that you're confident about yourself, and that you know who you are, where you came from, and what's your future, and what's your name, or even what's your role in society. It's like you need to define yourself so clearly. That the very fact that sometimes, and this mostly happens unconsciously, sometimes we take a look into ourselves, so there are gaps, just like we said, gaps between action and another action, between one desire and another frustration, between one thought and another. And in these gaps, we suddenly perhaps are not so sure that we know who we are. And it's like when you take off your social mask, your pretension, your Facebook identity, and so on. There is a sort of a naughty and nagging, unknown part or unknown space inside us that we can't really make sense of. We can't put it together. We can't make a story. And that's actually scary. And the spiritual journey really begins when you don't stop fearing this space inside. You say, okay, I'm going to look into it. I'm not going to cover it up with smoke and noise, and I'm going to give an honest look into myself. Because to be silent, it means to be honest. It's not a practice, it's not a meditation, it's a moment of honesty. So it's not comfortable, and yet you need to accept, if you're going to really enter deeply the spiritual journey, you need to accept your place in the universe as the greatest mystery ever. Now we need to understand, even when we think of mystery, we say, perhaps, I don't know, there are great mysteries in the universe. Or we don't, the origin of life is a mystery. Or what dark matter is made of is a mystery right now. And perhaps there is some crime that is a mystery until they hopefully resolve it. And so we usually think of a mystery, even if we say, I want to contact the mystery of the universe. We always think of it, as always, this is what minds do, as something that is outside of us, something that is over there. There is a mystery, and I want to get in touch with it. But really the greatest secret, the greatest mystery, the greatest unresolvable riddle is you. And you're beginning to realize that when you stop covering it up, you see? With thoughts and with emotions, you're starting to notice that there is a great, great gap, and that you really don't know. And then there is a twist in the drama that you will also never know. You cannot know. You are going to be a mystery forever. Whenever I speak to people there, and it can be deceiving because perhaps sometimes as a lecture and so on, it sounds very coherent or decisive or consistent, but really inside me I have no idea what speaks right now, you see? If I start asking, okay, but what is talking right now, I will be so confused that I will probably need to drink my tea for a moment to relax and to gather myself again. That's what happened to me at the age of 23. And I was tell this story not because I am addicted to telling this story, but because I think it's very instructive, it's very clear. It was just a moment in time, or a moment out of time, in which it was a silence retreat, and I just looked back into myself. Which means that I looked behind the stream of memories, the stream of everything that I had known about myself, everything that I had weaved together into a storyline. Who I had been, what I imagined I would be. And then I saw that there was nothing. It was just a moment of truth. It wasn't what, we call it, we give it big names, enlightenment and so on, but awakening and so on. But it's not like that. It's just a moment where you're so intimate with yourself, so close to yourself, that you're just looking behind your story. And you find out that you're made of nothing. That it's all a window display. It's mental constructs, emotional constructs that are surely shareable with the world. You don't go to people and say, hello, I'm nothing. People cry or call Shai, and I say yes. But always with a sense of estrangement, always with a sense of who? Because ever since it has never been obvious. The name and the history, the story, they cannot stick. So when you look back into yourself, when you look behind and you honestly find more space, much more space than things, you're actually free. At that moment, at the beginning you might be afraid of it, because of course, it is understandable. It means that you cannot tell a story about yourself. You don't know if you're ever going to be able to represent yourself properly. You have this feeling of, it's the dread of thought. Thought is telling you, what are you doing? You are going to actually sink into the complete unknowable space that you are. Don't do it. I don't know what to do there. I will not be able to help you. This is where I die. But if you don't listen to thought, you say, yeah. We hear you. You were not so much helpful. So I will do that anyway. And then you enter, there you realize that you are free. Because if you're nothing, nothing can stick to you. Your name, your age, your social status, your ups and downs, how people look at you, not even your self-acceptance or self-rejection cannot stick to you. It's because it means nothing. You're free. You're free because you're a mystery, and you're stop trying to to reject, to avoid that mystery and to try to cover it up. Now, why is it like that? Why are you a mystery? It is because, again, I'm returning to the night sky. Sorry. The night sky doesn't really have a definition. It doesn't have an edge. It doesn't have a character. It's like, we call it a sky, but what is a sky anyway, you see? It's not something that is clear. It's more like a general name to the part of space, the open space that we can see, and that contains everything. From another perspective, also, we are a part of another sky, right? Another dot. So, sky is not a something. Planets, suns, they are something because they have borders. So in the same way, when you meditate, you begin to realize that there is actually a great distance between you and things. There is a distance between you and your name. Right? A distance between you and your social role. Even a distance between you and your memories. You can be aware of all of that. The problem is that you're aware of all of that. You are not the things, but the I that looks at them. That's it. That's what you are. First and foremost, this is what you are. This is your starting point. So you're aware. That which means that you give light to the things that you observe. Which means that you're just awareness. Because you cannot say, perhaps this will not be clear, but I will just say it anyway. You cannot, the action of awareness and awareness, they are not different. It's just the same. It's not that you are aware. This is ridiculous to say. Now, can awareness be aware of itself? Can an I look into itself? Could you try for a second? Try. No, seriously. Try to direct your eyes and to turn them backwards to look at your eyes. You can only use your eyes to see things that are not you. In the same way, you can only be aware of things that are not you. And that's the reason you're a mystery. And there's nothing in the world that can change it. Not even the strongest identification. Even if I say, oh, I'm so attached to my body, I'm so attached to my wife, whatever. You can cover it up. But you cannot change your nature. So after that realization that took place at the age of 23, there was one full year in which I just didn't know what to do. Because what can a mystery do? What do mysteries do? I know what people do. They chase their pleasures, they try to become somebody important. All that I knew. But I didn't know how to be nothing. And I remember very clearly how suddenly someone called my name. And there was the moment in which I really looked back because I wasn't sure. It was a moment that you can call a moment of blessed embarrassment. A wonderful embarrassment. It's a moment in which I realized that my better name was life, or awareness, because all these identifications and memories and thoughts and emotions, they are a river without a center. They don't hold. They are not really unified. They don't really create a self. The thing is that inside you, you know it. You see? It's not that I'm telling you something astonishing. You feel it. It's a very intimate, sometimes uncomfortable feeling that we have when people look at us when we are suddenly socially embarrassed and don't know what to say. Sometimes when we walk on the street, or before we go to sleep at night, or when we are in a relationship, this feeling sneaks in. It can be very subtle. But it's the strange feeling that perhaps I don't know who I am. And then our thought tries to reinforce itself, to make it even clearer, more confident, more identified. And he tries to reject it as a sort of confusion, as if this is not a healthy state of the mind. But this is actually the healthiest state of the mind. To be nothing, to be a nobody, to have a silence instead of a head. Many years ago, there was a woman who came to a satsang. She was a mother of someone who used to come to satsang. And she didn't have any spiritual background. She actually came to check what her young son is doing, and if he might, get lost in something, some strange activity. And she said, I remember she said, here. It was not here, but she said, just here. And I talked, and then she suddenly raised her hand. And she didn't understand what I was talking about. She said, I don't understand this whole thing that you're saying about the I, the self, and somehow after a short discussion, this was really unexpected. And these things are always unexpected. You can never create them. And then I asked her, so who are you at this very moment? And she looked at me completely baffled. She was, but not because of me, but suddenly she had a look into herself and she said, nothing and everything. And it was a very powerful moment, because from a woman, a mother, a worried mother, she suddenly got awakened. Just because perhaps she wasn't trying too much, but just looking honestly into herself and looking back, taking this look back, making the eyes go backwards, and realizing that there's no substance there. More pure awareness that is not to someone. The second thing is, of course, the fact that she said nothing and everything. She said nothing and everything at the same time. This is what she said. The everything, forget about it right now. But because as soon as you realize that you're nothing, the next step, inevitable step, takes you to being everything. But that's not important. First, make yourself comfortable in the mystery that you are. Everything that we have accumulated, that we have covered, the awareness that we are with is just social adaptations, conventions, this memory or that memory, conclusions, impressions. Because the body has needs, we suddenly decided that we have needs. Because the emotional system has needs, we've decided that we have the needs. And then it started becoming so desperate inside, because without all those things, we couldn't be ourselves. That's very desperate. When your sense of self needs to be comfortable, needs to be happy, needs to be satisfied, needs to be touched, needs to be recognized, needs to be loved, and so And then you get your greatest horror story, which is the need to accept yourself, which you cannot, because you're not yourself, so you cannot accept yourself, you see. You just cannot do it, and then you try to do it somehow. Yeah, I love myself, but it's not working, and it will never work. The only self-acceptance that ever happens is when you realize that you cannot accept yourself. You also cannot reject yourself, because it's not yourself. You are what you are free. And if you ask the question, and with this I will end the talk, otherwise we will have no questions. If you ask yourself, but how can I live like that? You actually realize that it's much simpler than you could ever imagine. Because you see, there is a certain programming, a certain design. I always talk of this design. There is a natural design with attractions and passions and strength and tendencies, and this natural design is going to play itself out whether you want it or not. That's what is going to happen in this life. In this, by the way, we have very little freedom. We think we have huge freedom. In the Western society, we are taught that we have such a huge freedom. It's like you can do anything you want, you can become whatever you want, and so on. And that's, I think, it's perhaps a good capitalistic sale. It's just not a reality. It mainly convinces people to be a part of a certain madhouse, but we cannot be anything we want, and we cannot become whatever we want. It's not true. I cannot become a pilot, you see? Now that I'm saying that, I will need to think about it. But because we have this feeling that we could change ourselves and become whatever we are, that's why we have the frustration all the time, you see? That's why because we always think that there is another possibility that we're not exploring and that we're wasting our life, and then we are driving ourselves crazy. We always think of imagine the other thing, but there is no other thing. If there wasn't an other thing, you would go for it. One sooner or later, because that would be your natural design. It would compel you to do that. I can promise you. So, if there is a natural design, but I'm not my natural design, ever, and I cannot be, I'm not this shy, definitely not this body, definitely not this stream of actions and reactions. I can just let it flow. I don't need to intervene. It's doing very well without me. But sometimes they say that the whole spiritual journey is there is that awakening that you are a mystery, an infinite mystery, and then there is a lifetime to trust that you can live like that. When you fully trust that, it may be enlightenment. Any questions? If there is any online question, you're also most welcome. Yes, please. And by the way, if you feel more comfortable asking a question in German, no problem, just ask it, and I will look helplessly at my translator, okay? Yes, please.
I'm asking myself, why are you teaching all these other things like chakra developing and so on?
Yes.
This is the only thing.
Do I teach that? Okay, so I'm in trouble now, yes.
No, I'm asking myself if it wouldn't be, if it would be more effective, only to ask myself, who am I, go this way. I'm not, because the other thing creates, again, that I have to do something to be what I already am.
Yes. Yes. So, here's a good question. I will repeat it for the viewers. The question is, if there are teachings, for example, of chakra development, all kinds of personal development, and maybe chakra healing, maybe all kinds of emotional processes, are they not distracting or even creating more illusion because we are entering more into the trap of self-development? And you see, I made your question even more complicated. And then the question, should we not just focus on that and that alone? Of course, first of all, the question is what we will do with the rest of the time. Because it's only half a joke. Because this questioning does not happen in dark corners. They need to happen, this question needs to happen anyway, all the time. And even if you say, okay, I'm not doing chakra balancing anymore, I don't care because it's just creating the self, then I will tell you, you might as well stop living, because also that creates the illusion of self. Do you understand? It's like any social engagement, any work that you might take, anything that you might do in life puts you in the trap of self-development and self-improvement. Everything, because you will always be back from the same questioning, or you will realize that you are nothing. And then people will come to you and say, hey, you there. And they will talk to you, and you will need to answer, and you will start being challenged. And I remember one day, one teacher told me that when he sits in front of a huge crowd of a few hundreds, he gets a huge stage fright. You see? Which means that you can say, of course, I don't care about the stage fright. That's not a problem. But sometimes we will start realizing that we don't stop living because we're asking this question or because we're a mystery. The mystery has to play itself out. In the same way, you don't stop eating because you realize that you are nothing, right? Nobody says, I'm nothing, I'm a mystery. Mysteries don't eat. Awareness doesn't eat. We still know that we need to feed our body, and that means that this awareness that we are has vehicles of expression. The mental vehicle, emotional vehicle, physical vehicle, and probably more. Let's make it simple. Then these vehicles, they need to function well. Ideally, they even need to become vehicles of this nothing, you see? Of this awareness, of this consciousness. Now, that is why we're continuing to develop all of our parts. The only thing we must not do is think that those parts are who we are. And that's the trap, not the self-development. Not the self-development. I also keep developing, you see, in terms of physical health, in terms of emotional insight, intellectual understanding, everything is okay. I think last time I checked, it kept on running. And if I find out that there was some debilitating emotional pattern, I would immediately take care of it. I would not say, oh, but this is not who I am. Because this imbalance, this fog will not enable me to be one with myself, you see? Yes. Of course, of course.
So that means that this developing of the chakras or whatever, so I didn't get it, doesn't have to do anything with this finding out who I really am, or it helps to, can help, can lead to.
Another good question, but that would be the last one, because otherwise we'll just have our dialogue, which is nice, of course. I don't know what others will think about it. So the question is, does the chakra balancing or chakra work help at all with this, right? This is what you're asking. Or is it not connected at all? It helps because we are, in actuality, we are awareness, we are consciousness, and we also have a vehicle of expression. And this vehicle of expression needs to be able to conduct, to hold the light of our being. It means that the nervous system, the brain, the emotional system, the mental system, the energetic system, all need to be strong enough to be able to hold that mystery. As long as you're a person, your emotional world, your mental world are not so challenged, you see. They know pretty much what to do. It's something that has worked for, let's say, thousands of years of human culture. We know what to do, even when we are confused. There is a stronger stream. But to be you inside the world, that means holding so much light of consciousness, so much awareness, so much presence, you see? Because that mystery, when you realize it begins to pour into your being. And that's not always easy. Now, what you need to understand, everything you do in the context of enlightenment advances enlightenment. Do you understand? If you are starting to confuse yourself and you fall into the trap of I'm doing it to self-accept and to love myself or to improve my being and so on, yes, this would be a trap, but like everything else. But if you say I'm doing it to make my whole being clear, free. For example, I'm releasing an emotional pattern so that my being can reflect the consciousness that I am, then you can never go wrong. It's all about the why. Why? What's your intention in what you do? Please, yes.
It's from Bettina.
Okay, okay.
But if we are only observing...
It starts with but?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And the we is with focus. But if we are only observing, only a watching eye,
Yes,
neutral space,
yes.
how to unite this with compassion, loving in action?
Okay. So, if we are only this watching eye, how do I unite it with compassion? Let's say, put it like that. If compassion comes out as a moral trick, as something that we think we should do, it will not take us very far, except for feeling that, I don't know, that we are God's darlings, or that we are society's darlings. Nietzsche said, what is Nietzsche doing in Satsang suddenly? But I'm probably disturbing his sleep right now, his rest. But sorry. But Nietzsche said that whenever we do good to others, then society praises us and says how much we are good people. But this is only because society benefits from those who do good to others and sacrifice themselves. So this is when he questions morality. So morality, if we're compassionate because we want to be good persons, or that we feel that this is the right thing to do, like, I don't know, like being worried about global warming is just the right fashion, and not something that is out of understanding, out of consciousness, out of awareness of our interconnectedness, and so on, then it will not take us very far. We need to trust and we need to understand that inside this consciousness, inside this awareness, there is also compassion. It's not easy at the beginning. Because at the beginning, it seems completely indifferent. That's an illusion. This is what thought tells you. Thought tells you this is what it does. Because thought is afraid, please understand. So your thinking says, what are you doing? This is so indifferent, you're going to end up as pathetic like a vegetable. You're going to be a tomato. You're going to be a wall. What are you doing? Look how heartless you are becoming. And because people sometimes represent this thought, because we all represent it until we stop, then thought in the form of people tells you, we are becoming so heartless. You care about no one. And if you don't say, at least for a little while, you don't say, yes, it's true, I don't care about anything. I'm indifferent. If you don't go through that indifference and deepen more into that awareness, you will never realize the compassion that comes out of this awareness. And this thing, the thing is, this awareness is first of all free. Do you understand what it means, free? Free, it means that you come up and say, nothing binds me. Nothing. I'm not anything of all this, I'm free. I am what I am. I cannot be affected, I cannot be shaped. And this freedom from your past, freedom from your future, freedom from the needs and from the need to enter self-acceptance and all that, this freedom makes you so amazingly available. Do you understand what it means? Available? It means that you have nothing to do. Now, when you have nothing to do for yourself, you are so free and so much emptier. You have all the time in the world for everyone else. Because if you look into yourself, there's the existential neurosis of finding your place in the world, all that is gone, and you are finally silent and relaxed. Then people come to you, to this clear space, and just like the sky, the night sky holds the stars, and just as your mind, empty mind, holds your thoughts, in the same way, your awareness holds people and animals and plants. It has so much space that everything begins to be healed in this presence and relaxed in this presence. And this is just the starting point, because suddenly you're starting to realize that this awareness is for everyone. When there is more self, you are no longer a host. You are a container. You are all-inclusive. If you are free, you are also free to love. If you are free, you are also free to love without need. If you are free, you are also free to love without the need for confirmation or recognition. It means that you can pour and pour and pour out of yourself without limit. Because you're free. And freedom is the condition for love. You cannot love without freedom. We always need to understand it. Love without freedom is a make-believe. It's an imagination. And that's only the first step. The second step is when you're entering this mystery more and more, feeling more and more relaxed, and then you realize that this mystery is the essence of everything. But this awareness, it does not start here and ends here. It's just spread throughout space. It is like the night sky. It has no edge. It has no barrier. It is not mine or yours. This is the second half of what that mother said. I'm nothing and everything at the same time. Of course, probably she didn't want it that much. And probably when she went home, her mind says, "Oh, come on, what happened there? Was I hypnotized? It is dangerous what they're doing there. I need to but at least for that moment, her mind revealed itself. Then she knew the two realities, nothing and everything. And in between this nothing and everything, compassion is born. It's in the meeting point. Then you realize that you're worried that you might not love, that you might not be compassionate, that you might be indifferent forever. You realize that it was the other way around, that you, before that, with this self, you were indifferent. You had no compassion. Everyone was just your projections. You were a huge sack of needs that oh my God. A huge sack of needs that merely projected expectations and never really looked at anyone because it just wasn't available, even for a single moment. It was so busy with its own stuff that it couldn't see realities of others. So then whatever thought is telling us is always the other way around. It's always the opposite. At least when thought fights for its life, which is understandable. Everything that fights for its life begins to make ridiculous arguments. You see, like, like, don't do it. I have a family. You see. So in the same way, thought says, don't do it. I'm holding the world for you together. I'm making sense in everything. I'm your family. I'm your friend. Who will caress you with worry and anxiety all day long if I'm not there, right? Who will keep you company and tell you really, really confusing and disturbing stuff when you want to relax? Who will tell you that there is always something frustrating about reality? Who will tell you that there's always something to correct and something to be troubled about? It's me. I'm just making fun. Okay, so two last questions, I think, here and here. Yes, please.
Yeah, as you talk about freedom and you need to be free to love, to do anything.
Yes.
I understand, but there is no free will. Understand? So there is no free will. Things are happening anyway. So there's not. There's no point. Well, because things are happening, there is no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no free will at all, also not in small things, if I eat fish or not. The choice, is it a free choice or is it? Because whatever thought comes in my mind, whatever choice comes in my mind, it's not my will. You know what I mean?
Okay, so the question is, if there is no free will, what are you talking about? No, I'm joking. I'm just paraphrasing because to make it funny. If there is no free will,
what is freedom all about?
What is this freedom that the freedom to love and so on and so on and so on that I'm talking about? Well, I didn't say that there was no free will. I said that there is very little free will, that most of what we call free will doesn't exist. Thankfully, we have a little free will. Of course, we have very little free will because, first of all, because we are a part of a tremendous web of interconnectedness that starts all the way from the deepest mystery of life, that has its own reasons, its own karmic connections and so on, which we cannot comprehend, all the way to 8 billion people and many more plants and animals, okay? And all these forces, they have their own natural designs and wills and drives and so on that they were programmed into, and so everyone is pushing. Imagine it like a mass of everyone is pushing. So in this atmosphere, there is very little room for what we can do because we are a part of it. So we are influenced by so many factors. Even astrology is right, correct to a certain degree. It's not perfect, but even the stars influence us. Even the moon influences us. So we don't have great free will. We have our own social conditioning, and we are conditioned to being Germans or Israelis or Swiss or whatever. And we think that we behave in our way while we are actually being Swiss or being German or being Israelis. This is just one example. So, and we have certain inclinations and tendencies that are ingrained in us. We don't choose them. I like to write, and I like philosophy. You perhaps not. You see? Why do I like to write and I like philosophy? I have no idea. I just like it. You see? That is its own justification. It's because this is what I am. So, but in this we still have some freedom. And the freedom is bringing consciousness into our being. This act has nothing to do with life, has nothing to do with the world, has nothing to do with external influence, has nothing to do with the stars. This is a choice. You can philosophize, of course, and argue, even this is when I'm urged to do that, that's not my choice. To a certain degree, yes. Still, it's clear that we have some measure of selectivity, the capacity to choose what is truer in us, what is more real, what we want, what voice we want to obey. That's the freedom that we have. It may not be great, but it is only the difference between being a totally divine and spiritual being, inseparable from the universe, and being a person.
Who's choosing?
We really don't know. We don't know. Always when you ask who, you will get into trouble. That's the horrible question, you see? Not that it's, no, I'm not saying that you're asking a horrible, I'm saying it's a horrible, horrible question. It always ends up in silence. Because every time you will try to look into the who, you will find there a mystery. This is what this satsang is all about. That's your freedom, and that's your confusion.
Is the mystery the higher self?
Sorry?
Is the mystery the higher self?
The mystery is the self, the only self, yes. Again, to call it a self,
The higher self.
even a higher or lower self, there is no self in this universe. Self means a center.
A consciousness.
Consciousness is not a center because it's everywhere and includes everything and it's inside everything, you see? And then this means that it's not here or there or in me. Do you understand? So when I say self, what does it mean?
That voice, that intuition, that something we sometimes have.
Yes, but this intuition is not a self, it's just an intuition without a self. Do you understand? I'm not just being over sophisticated. I'm just saying there is no self in the universe. There is consciousness, and that's very different, because when we imagine self, immediately we have a center. You see? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Buddha was right. This is what Buddha said. That's why he didn't like talking about soul. you see? Not because he was against souls, but because he wanted to make a point that there is no center in the universe. It's just, there is no point of reference, there is no edge, there is no core. It's a totality. Last question.
Well, you almost answered it now.
Did I? That's convenient, yes?
The human being,
Yes.
I was going to ask the human being, does it have a center?
The human being, a human being have a center, right?
That defines it, doesn't
That defines the human being? Absolutely none. Only an imagined one. If you really want, your thought can create an illusion of a center. Most people are very happy with it. You see? And then, what thought does is that it takes fragments of memories, attractions, inclinations, intuitions, whatever. It takes them and it bundles them up. It creates a sort of a package. And this package, it says me. It calls me. This is a self. It gives us a self. It says, here. It's a defined me. When you enter even for a moment of honesty into this bundle, you realize that it's exactly this, a bundle of thoughts, emotions, intuitions, actions, activities, inclinations. That's it.
I didn't say that the center is the self, but that the human being needs to have a center.
Oh yes.
In order
That's what we call, the ego.
to feel that it is the nothingness.
Yes, that's what we call, we need to have some kind of a psychological organizing point. Yes.
I have to call it myself.
Why?
Well, because you have no self, but you have a center.
You have, but do you hear what you're saying? You have a center.
Yeah.
How can you call something that you have yourself or me? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like saying, do you have right now a cup of tea? I would say, yes, I do have a cup of tea. I agree. So then you ask me, do you have a center? I say, yes, I have a center also.
But you say, I have a body, but I'm not the body.
Exactly.
I have a center, but I'm not the center.
Exactly. Exactly. When you have a car, do you say, I am my car? I hope. I know some men, I look at them, when they come to their car, it's obvious that the car is their extension. If it gets damaged, they get damaged. It shakes them to the core of their being. If something ever happens to my center,
I get me a new one.
Hmm?
I get me a new one.
Or I would just say, never mind. And sometimes we do lose the center. In meditation, we lose the center. In deep sleep, we definitely lose the center. In transcendent experiences and revelations, we definitely lose the center. So it's not permanent. It's just a tool that we use and activate when we need it. Just like a body. There needs to be a psychological body. Very good, right? Thank you for very beautiful questions. I'm now concluding the meeting. So please go out to the night with this sense. Don't look for interesting mysteries in life, or interesting adventures, because you are such a mystery and such an adventure that no matter how much you're going to travel inside yourself, inside this consciousness, it will always remain unknown and always remain astonishingly beautiful. So thank you for sharing this.